All right, so Ashley, you and I have talked about this. I don't think Ted and Michael know this, but they know that Michael Westbrook is being honored. He's going to the College Football Hall of Fame. But they don't know the impact that Michael Westbrook has had in your life, nor do the listeners. Could you share with us that story around how you even ended up going to high school in Boulder or in Colorado?
It's funny because I was just talking with our pregame show producer, David Arnold, and telling him this story. And he said, well, we got to get Michael Westbrook on the pregame show and you got to tell him this story. So basically the shortest version that I can say it is that I was living in Michigan with my mom at the time. I was born in Denver, but my mom and my brother and I moved to Michigan when we were little. And my brother ended up moving back to Colorado when I was in 7th grade. So unbeknownst to me at the time, my mom, who went to Michigan for undergrad and Colorado for grad school, had been really conflicted about whether or not she should move with me to Colorado so that my brother and I could be together for high school. So she goes to the Colorado-Michigan game in '94 with her Colorado sweatshirt on with all of her Michigan friends. And she said beforehand, like, I'm hoping that this game will give me a sign as to what I'm supposed to do. So that's kind of the setup. We all know what happens in the game, right? Michael Westbrook catches the Hail Mary, and it's one of the most memorable games and finishes ever. My mom said, I just talked to her this morning about this and was asking her about the memories. And she said, well, I just remember feeling so disappointed that Michigan was going to win, which was kind of telling me what I probably already knew in my heart, that the right thing to do was to quit my job, end my relationship, and move with you back to Colorado. And then she said, when they threw that Hail Mary, she was like, it was the biggest sign I could have ever asked for. It smacked me in the face. And I still remember, I'm in 7th grade, she comes home and I think she had a couple of beers at that point. I didn't really know what that was when I was in 7th grade, but she's like running into the kitchen counter going, you won't believe what just happened. And we're moving to Colorado. And like, I didn't even know that moving to Colorado was on the table. So I just remember thinking, like, what happened at a football game that caused my mom to come home and tell me that we're moving to Colorado? And I wouldn't find out until, a little bit later. And as I've gotten older and appreciated that game and that finish even more, just the impact that catch and that throw and that play had on my life. So yeah, that's my connection to that game. So I'm excited to meet him and just be like, hey, thank you. This was.
Wait a minute. I'm excited to meet your mom. You guys do whatever the hell you want to do on your nonsense stuff, show stuff. I'm having beers with your mom, okay?
Yeah. She, you know what? She'll come to Boulder. She will be there in a second if that is an open invite, and she's going to have a beer with. I can tell you that.
Running into tables. I like that. She'll like that too, I'm sure.
Oh, that is so good.
Enjoy that part of the story as well. I don't think I was supposed to include that, but hey, this is the Truth Teller podcast, right?
That's right. That's why you come to it. Okay, Ash, because we only have you for a couple minutes. Let's break this game down. You get into campus. It sounds like your crew is already interviewing Mustafa Johnson later today. Today is Wednesday, the 29th. What goes on in the preparation for the pregame show, and what are you most looking forward to in a game with two teams coming off challenging losses?
You know who's actually interviewing Mustafa Johnson today that I just found out? It's Evan Batty, the Colorado basketball player. He's going to do the walk and talk, which I think is awesome. Wow. And that's one of my favorite parts about kind of setting up the week. And, you all know this, but as you talk with the schools, and certainly as the Pac-12 Network has gotten older, our relationships with the SIDs and the schools and the coaches and the players has evolved as well. So I think there's a real level of trust there. And so it's just been cool to see all the different things that Colorado, as we go there to showcase, their campus and their program and the things that they want us, the stories that they want us to be able to tell and the access that we get. Like, that's one of my favorite parts, is kind of seeing all of that come together of, hey, we meet with them early in the week. This is what we're thinking. What do you guys want us to do? And then let's figure out what makes sense. And it all sort of, comes up on Saturday morning. So I think the thing that I'm most excited is just to be back in Boulder. I mean, the last time I was in Boulder for a game, it was when they beat Nebraska. I guess it was 2019. And that was one of the most memorable games I've been at. But I'm excited to see two teams that both clearly, obviously, desperately need a win. And I think for me in particular, I'm really curious to see how USC is going to show up. Obviously with Oregon State, I think that Oregon State loss, we're going to see as Oregon State continues on. My guess is that they're going to be the team that okay, maybe that loss is going to make more sense as the season goes on, because I think the Beavs are a real deal. That wasn't a fluke. But I want to see USC show up with, like, what are their leaders going to do? What is this offense going to look like? Nick Alioti's whole thing about USC's offense is that he just feels like it's gotten way too predictable, and that you kind of know exactly what's going to happen, if you watch the play 95% of the time. So I think that's going to be interesting. I'm excited to see Mustafa Johnson back on the field. What a cool story that is. And then, obviously the Michael Westbrook thing and being able to be around him. But yeah, just being back in Boulder as a Colorado native and a Colorado girl, it's one of my most favorite places to get to go to. And the thing, obviously, I'll stop talking after this, that I am most excited about is that for the first time this season and the first time in a long time, I get to be with your guys' crew on the road. So that's 1A, obviously.
Amen. Amen to that.
I'm a Beaver believer too, Ashley, by the way. I've been touting them for about 2 years on this pod. So
I love that. I love that. Yeah, no, I think it was, that was an unbelievable performance. And I think we'll know more about them each week as it goes on, certainly. But I think that loss isn't necessarily going to look as bad as it maybe feels right now for some people on the USC side.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I was just at USC practice yesterday, and Dante Williams, he's putting his stamp on the program. He is. The practice schedule looked different than any practice I'd been to at USC under Clay Helton, so they changed how they were going to practice.
How so?
You felt that? Just the drills, the timing, it was just different. They begin practice with I think they call it fastball, which is like finish stretch. A lot of teams do this, and all of a sudden, boom, you get going. And it's a twos versus ones versus twos, 2-minute drill, and try to get the team going. And I think a lot of teams that do that, they want to start fast. And this team has struggled starting fast at times. They've struggled coming out of halftime at times. So I think that is a theme for them as they get going in this ball game. And for Colorado, Ted, you've seen it, right? We saw the Arizona State game over the weekend. They've struggled on offense, right? And not insanely when you look at the numbers. It's just like the moments where Brendan Rice gets behind a defender, they don't complete the ball. Like the little things, that's what I want to see in this ball game. For Ted, as you've prepared for this one, and you look at the Buffs, Carl Durrell coming home, Nate Lamon, Terrence Lang, this defensive front, the two corners they have. What jumped out to you in your preparation for this one?
Well, I've got to say, guys, I'm glad you guys referenced it, because to me, we buried the headline a little bit. The story of this week is Oregon State. What they did last Saturday, thank goodness for USC and their recruiting hopes that was on late night on a kind of a semi-obscure network that maybe not as many people saw, because that was Oregon State ran the ball 51 out of 70 plays. That's extraordinary. So it factors into what I think everybody's been saying here. How does USC respond? Because that's not supposed to happen to USC. That just is not supposed to happen to them. For Oregon State, that's phenomenal. And BJ Baylor emerges. And look, if you're Oregon State right now they're sitting in West Lafayette saying, man, Purdue, man, we spoiled Oregon State CFP hopes. That's what they're thinking. But if you're Oregon State, look, Oregon, we understand is the king of the hill right now in that north, but everybody else is kind of fighting to be the team that has the best shot to knock them off. If I'm in Corvallis right now, I'm thinking, why not us? Why not us? Why can't we get to the Civil War game I'm sorry, it's not called that any longer. Apologies up north. But we get to the rivalry game with a chance to win that division. How awesome would that be?
They beat them last year.
Yeah, they beat them last year. And they had a chance last year to win the North, with all the crazy math that went on. So I'm with you with, this team seems to go so confident. Chance Nolan, Michael, we've talked about him. How many times every week we're talking about him off the air of what he's done as a third stringer, hanging around, not bailing, and dealing at times last week against Drake Jackson in that front.
Amazing what can happen if you don't run to the portal immediately.
Amen to that.
Hey, by the way, hat tip.
Hey, didn't edit that out.
No, but hat tip to the Oregonian. They came up with this, and USC, 46 4-star recruits on their roster. Oregon State, 7, which of course is my annual or maybe monthly reminder that high school recruiting ratings are meaningless. But that's extraordinary. When you watch that game Saturday night, you see what Oregon State did to USC, and then you realize that difference. on the rosters, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it goes back to, I think, not only development, but and I believe this. There was an article in The Athletic, I think, last week, Antonio Morales, Bruce Feldman
Yeah.
combination. And the thing that stood out, there's a lot of things in there, but was like how Nick Saban turns down a dozen 4- and 5-star guys a year. And I look at like Chip Kelly, because those numbers are very similar to LSU, UCLA, if you go to the rankings and the star rankings. And I think for SC, with all the changes we've seen, if you look at the last 5 years of recruiting, it was T. Martin's offense, Clay Helton's offense, Cliff Kingsbury's offense, Graham Harrell's, like just different identities. And we talk identity all the time around here. And I'm really looking forward to when they do make that next hire. What is that identity? You know, and that was the topic on the sideline of practice yesterday. I'll tell you that, among a bunch of people that were there. All right, so Ashley, before we let you go, what is the one thing that you hope to see outside of Ted on your set on Saturday in the ball game?
Oh, I was going to say the one thing non-ball game that I want to see is Ralphie Six. Like we're going to be set up apparently right next to her. So I'm looking forward to introducing myself to that beautiful beast and seeing what she's all about. The thing that I'm excited to see Mustafa Johnson back. I think that's probably one of the biggest things. And then Nate Landman, we've talked about him, Yogi the Hammer. I'm looking forward to having us all having the Hammer shirts that we can wear post game, because I think that's I can't believe we don't have those already.
Ashley, are you old enough to get the joke Hammer Time? Do you know what I'm referencing?
Oh yeah, that's my generation for sure.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I mean, I would wear my Hammer pants. I do have a pair of those as well. So.
You won't do it.
Don't we all?
Yeah. No, I think the biggest thing I'm looking forward to seeing is just Keaton Slovis and this USC offense. Like, let's see, and as well as the defense, after you just mentioned all the things that Oregon State did to them last weekend, how do they look? Can Drake London, he's been the guy. Can they continue to just go? Everyone knows that it's going to go to him, and it continues. He just continues to make catches and plays and is open somehow. So I'm looking forward to seeing them in person, but just how does USC show up coming off of what was certainly a really tough, disheartening loss for that locker room? That's what I'm looking forward to watch. How about you? What are you most looking forward to seeing?
You know, I can't wait to see Katie Nixon. Like if we could mic up one player in pregame, you know, I talked to a bunch of players at SC yesterday about him, and like, of course, he's given the scouting report, right? So, and Katie's had an elevated role in the last couple of weeks. So I look forward to just watching that. You don't see that very often, inter-conference transfers. We're going to start seeing it, but especially for Katie, the successful career he had at Colorado, that's going to be a blast.
Is it still going to be Slovis?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and KD, a guy who that team, you ask anybody on that team, they loved KD. Like there was no bad, it was sort of like, hey, go try. And if this is what you want to do, go for it. If that's the move that you want to make, but there was no love lost there. He loves Boulder. He loves that program and the fans there and all that. So I'm interested to see how the fans react to him as well.
I love it.
I'm
all
excited,
right, Ash.
guys. Thanks for having me on. Let's not wait another like 5 years for an invitation back. All right. I'm just gonna start showing up. I'm just gonna
show up. Just show
Next
up.
week, this
Exactly.
time,
That's
Ash,
all
we're
we do.
looking at-
appreciate you guys.
Ashley Adamson,